"Help! We're freezing to death!" The voice was barely a whisper through the blizzard. Alice Brooks, a black grandmother 68 years old, saw them scattered across Route 46. 9 massive men in dark suits, family rings gleaming on their fingers, black luxury cars overturned in the snow, all of them dying from the cold. She had nothing. Her house was falling apart, her bank account nearly empty. She was nobody, but she loaded them into her car anyway, made 3 trips through the worst storm Montana had seen in 50 years, brought all 9 strangers into her tiny house. She saved their lives that night. The next morning they showed up at her door. What those 9 men did, what they told her, what they revealed left Alice sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. Because it turned out these men weren't who she thought they were, and one of them had been searching for her for 40 years. That morning started like every morning for the past 3 years. Alice Brooks stood in her kitchen staring at the thermostat. 58 degrees. The house felt like a refrigerator, but she couldn't turn it up. Not if she wanted to eat this month. She did the math in her head again. The same math she did every single day. Social Security, $243 a month. Property tax, $430 every 3 months. Utilities in winter, $180. Medications, $95, even with insurance, groceries, whatever was left, which wasn't much. Alice wrapped Jerome's old flannel shirt tighter around her shoulders. He'd been gone 3 years now. Heart attack sudden at the hardware store. 1 minute he was buying light bulbs, the next he was gone. The house felt empty without him, and cold. So cold. She made her oatmeal, single serving, the cheap kind, and counted out her pills. High blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol. The pharmacist had shown her how to split them, make them last twice as long. It wasn't safe, but it was necessary. Her arthritic hands shook as she cut the tiny pills in half. "We might not have much, Alice," Jerome used to say, "but we got enough to share." She looked at the penny jar by the door, almost full. Maybe $22 this time, enough to buy granola bars for the kids at school. Because despite everything, despite the cold house and the split pills and the bank account that made her chest tight with worry, Alice still volunteered at Bent Creek Elementary twice a week. She read to first graders, watched their faces light up at story time, and she watched which kids looked hungry, which ones wore the same clothes 3 days in a row, which ones asked if they could take the library snack home for later. She knew those signs. She'd spent 35 years working in school cafeterias. She knew what hungry looked like, so the penny jar stayed. And when it was full, she bought snacks, slipped them into backpacks when teachers weren't looking, never made a big deal of it. Some of those kids, that granola bar was dinner. Alice checked her watch. 4:45 p.m. Her volunteer shift at the library had just ended. She needed to get home. The small TV in the corner was showing the weather. The forecaster's face looked worried. Blizzard warning in effect for all of northwestern Montana. Whiteout conditions expected by 6 p.m., road closures likely. This is a dangerous, potentially life-threatening storm. If you don't need to travel, stay home. Alice looked out the window. Snow was already falling, harder than the forecast had predicted. Her 1998 Buick LeSabre sat in the grocery store parking lot. 228,000 miles. The check engine light had been on for 3 months. The mechanic said it needed $800 in repairs. She didn't have $800. She had a car that might die any day, and a 12-mile drive home on Route 46, a winding, unlit road that the county rarely plowed quickly. Alice loaded her grocery bags into the trunk. She'd stopped for the sale items. Chicken thighs, $1.29 a pound. Day-old bread, half price. Canned vegetables, 10 for $10. She sat in the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, died. Her heart dropped. She tried again. This time it caught. The whole car shook, but it ran. "Come on, baby," she whispered. "Just get me home." The snow was falling faster now. Big, wet flakes that stuck to everything. Visibility was dropping by the minute. Alice had a choice. Risk the drive home or spend money she didn't have on a motel room. She thought about the turkey soup in her refrigerator. If the power went out, it would spoil. That was 3 more meals gone. She thought about her medication sitting on the kitchen counter. She couldn't miss doses. She thought about her warm bed, her blankets, the only place that felt safe. The decision made itself. She pulled out of the parking lot and headed for Route 46. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles went white. The windshield wipers struggled against the snow. By the time she reached the highway, she could barely see 10 feet ahead. The Buick's heater barely worked. Cold air seeped through the worn weather stripping around the doors. Alice's breath made clouds in the car. She drove 15 miles an hour, maybe 20 on the straight stretches. The road was empty. Everyone else had the sense to stay home. She passed a house with lights on, warm golden light spilling from the windows. She imagined the family inside, dinner cooking, heat running, not worrying about which bill to pay first. The snow fell harder. Alice leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. Route 46 wound through the mountains like a snake. No streetlights, no guardrails in some places, just trees and darkness and snow. She prayed quietly. Lord, just get me home. Please, just get me home. Mile marker 32. She was close, just a few more miles. That's when her headlights caught something in the road ahead. Something dark, something big. At first, she thought it was deer. Then she saw the gleam of gold, a ring catching the light. Then she saw the hand raised weakly in the storm, and Alice Brooks realized her prayer was about to be answered in a way she never expected. Alice slammed on the brakes. The Buick slid on the ice before stopping. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She turned on her hazard lights, squinted through the windshield. There were people in the road, multiple people, all of them down. Oh God, she whispered. She grabbed her phone. No signal. Of course, this stretch of Route 46 was a dead zone. Everyone knew that. Alice's hands trembled as she opened the car door. The wind hit her like a fist. Snow stung her face. The cold sucked the air from her lungs. She stumbled forward, using her car door for balance. 30 feet ahead, she could see them clearly now. 9 men, all wearing expensive dark suits, family rings gleaming on their fingers. Black luxury SUVs and sedans scattered across the road like toys thrown by an angry child. Black ice gleamed under her headlights. They'd hit a patch and gone down hard. Most of the men weren't moving. Alice's first instinct was fear. Everyone knew about the Rossi family. Dangerous, criminal, not people you approached alone on a dark road. But then she saw their faces. Blue lips, violent shivering in some. No shivering in others, which was worse. They weren't dangerous right now. They were dying. One was propped against the guardrail, hand raised, trying to wave. His lips were blue. His whole body shook violently. Alice rushed toward him, her old knees protesting every step. Sir, can you hear me? His eyes focused on her, but barely. Lady, just go. Dangerous. She looked at the others. 2 had stopped shivering completely. That was bad. That was stage 3 hypothermia. That meant their bodies were shutting down. Alice had seen the training videos back when she worked at the school. How to recognize medical emergencies, how to spot the signs. These men were dying right here, right now. She counted again. 9 men. Her car had 5 seats if she crammed them in. Her house was 8 miles back. The nearest hospital was 35 miles ahead. And she'd never make it in this storm. The math was impossible, but leaving them meant they'd all die within the hour. Alice looked at the man against the guardrail. Really looked at him. His suit was expensive, clearly custom-tailored. Yes, but there was something else. A medical pin on his lapel. She couldn't see it clearly in the snow. Can you walk? She shouted over the wind. Can any of you walk? 4 of them stirred. 2 managed to lift their heads. It wasn't enough, but it would have to be. Alice made a decision. The kind of decision that felt insane even as she made it. Listen to me. Her voice cut through the storm. That same voice that had controlled chaotic school lunch lines for 35 years. I'm taking the 4 strongest first. We go now. I'll come back for the others. The man against the guardrail tried to shake his head. Can't leave, brothers. You leave now or you all die together. Alice grabbed his arm. I am not burying 9 men tonight because you're too stubborn to accept help. Move. Something in her voice, the absolute authority, the refusal to argue, broke through their hypothermic confusion. They moved. Alice half-dragged, half-carried the first man to her car. He was massive, at least 240 pounds. Her back screamed in protest. The old injury from years of lifting industrial soup pots flared hot and sharp. She didn't care. She shoved him into the passenger seat, cranked the heat to maximum, and went back for the others. 2 more in the back seat. 1 more squeezed into the middle console area. They were pressed together like sardines, but they were in. "Stay awake," she ordered. "Check on each other. If someone stops responding, you slap them. You understand me?" Weak nods. One of the men in back managed to speak. His lapel had that medical pin she'd noticed earlier. She filed that away. "What? Why helping?" Alice threw the car into gear. "Because it's the right thing to do now. Shut up and stay alive." She drove. 8 miles back toward town felt like 80. The Buick slipped and slid. The men in the car smelled like expensive cologne and leather and fear. The one in the passenger seat, she'd learn later his name was Marco, kept shaking so hard his teeth clattered together. "What's your name?" Alice asked, partly to keep him awake, partly to keep herself calm. Marco. Where were you headed, Marco?" Missoula. Toy drive for kids." Toy drive. The Rossi family doing charity. Alice had heard about that. They did toy drives for children's hospitals, raised money for causes. Maybe these weren't the dangerous criminals everyone assumed. "Well, Marco, you're going to live to deliver those toys. You hear me?" He nodded weakly. She pulled into her driveway at 7:11 p.m. 5 more men were still dying on that road. She had to go back. The second trip was worse. Alice's hands were numb. Her car was barely warm from the first run, and the storm had gotten meaner. Wind rattled the Buick like it wanted to tear it apart. She prayed the whole way. "Lord, I know I don't ask for much, but I need you now. I need these brakes to hold. I need this engine to keep running. I need to save those men." When she reached mile marker 34, her heart nearly stopped. The 5 men she'd left behind were barely visible under the snow. 2 weren't moving at all. "No, no, no!" Alice threw the car into park and ran. She reached the first man, one of the non-responsive ones. Shook him hard. "Hey, wake up. Stay with me." Nothing. She checked his neck. Pulse faint, but there. 3 of the remaining 5 were conscious enough to help. They struggled to their feet, movement slow and clumsy. Together they lifted the 2 worst cases. One of the conscious men, his lapel also had that medical pin she'd noticed, looked at Alice with something like disbelief. You came back?" "Of course I came back." Alice supported his weight as they stumbled toward her car. "You think I was going to leave you here to die? What kind of person do you think I am? Most people would, especially for us." She knew what he meant. The suits, the rings, the reputation. Most people saw the Rossi family and drove faster. Then most people are wrong. She loaded 5 more bodies into her car somehow. They overlapped, leaned on each other, made it work. The Buick's suspension groaned under the weight. The man she'd helped to the car, she'd learned his name was Vincent, kept staring at her. "You're risking everything." Alice started driving, slower now, heavier load. "I'm not risking anything that matters. Your life is worth spending if it means 9 other people get to keep theirs." Vincent fell silent, but she could feel his eyes on her in the rearview mirror, like he was trying to memorize her face, like he recognized something. Back home at 7:44 p.m., her living room looked like a disaster zone. 9 men in various states of recovery. The first group had rallied. Marco was checking pulses, organizing, taking charge despite his own exhaustion. He moved with medical precision, checking airways, capillary refill, pupil response. He looked up when Alice brought in the second group. "Ma'am, you're incredible. I'm tired is what I am." Alice helped settle the newcomers. "One more trip." Marco's eyes widened. "One more?" "There's another." 1 man left. "Your friend by the guardrail. That's Salvatore, our boss." Marco stopped her. "Ma'am, you can barely stand. Let me. You can barely walk." Alice pulled away. "I'll be fine. You just keep everyone alive until I get back." The third trip was the hardest. Alice's whole body ached. Her arthritic hands could barely grip the wheel. The old back injury from her cafeteria days was screaming. Every breath hurt from the cold. But there was a man dying on Route 46. The boss of the Rossi family, the leader, the one his brothers were worried about, and she was the only one who could save him. When she reached the crash site at 8:06 p.m., she almost cried. The man, Salvatore, was slumped against the guardrail, not moving. Snow had half buried him. His expensive suit was covered in ice. No, you don't get to die. Not tonight. Alice fell to her knees beside him, shook him hard. Wake up. Come on. His eyes cracked open barely. He looked at her face. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, confusion. You, his voice was almost gone. An angel. I'm somebody's grandmother now. Get in the damn car. But Salvatore was huge. 6'3", at least 250 pounds. And Alice was 68 years old with arthritis and a bad back. She tried to lift him, failed. Tried again, failed. Her eyes burned with tears of frustration. Come on, Jerome. I know you're up there. Help me, please. She tried a third time. This time, Salvatore managed to help just a little. Enough that she could drag him inch by inch to the car. By the time she got him into the passenger seat, Alice's vision was blurring from exhaustion, from cold, from the sheer impossibility of what she'd just done. But she'd done it. 9 men, 3 trips, all alive. Alice Brooks drove home one last time. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely steer. The Buick slipped twice, nearly went off the road. But at 8:19 p.m., she pulled into her driveway. The living room lights glowed like heaven. She helped Salvatore inside. The other men rushed to support him, their boss, their leader, checking him over with obvious worry and relief. Alice collapsed into her armchair. Every muscle screamed. Marco appeared with a glass of water. Ma'am, emergency services are on their way. We called from your landline, but the storm... They said maybe 2 hours. Alice nodded, too tired to speak. Around her, the 9 men were organizing themselves with surprising efficiency. Marco was checking vitals, moving like a trained medic. Vincent was distributing blankets. Another man, younger but moving with clinical precision, was assessing everyone methodically. They moved like professionals, like they'd done this before. Strange for mob enforcers, but Alice was too exhausted to think about it. She went to her kitchen, looked at the pot of turkey soup she'd been planning to eat all week. 9 men, 1 pot of soup. The math didn't work. It would have to. She heated the soup, divided it into 9 bowls. The portions were tiny, but it was warm, and warm was what they needed. When she brought the first bowl out, Salvatore took it with shaking hands, looked at her with something like wonder. Why? His voice was rough, damaged from the cold. Why did you? For us? Alice set down the tray. Because you needed help. That's all the reason anyone should ever need. But the family. People don't. People should. Alice adjusted his blanket. You're human beings. That's what matters. The hours blurred together. Alice moved through her tiny house, checking on 9 men, distributing every blanket she owned, making coffee, monitoring for signs of frostbite. Vincent watched her the whole time, that same intense stare. At one point around midnight, he whispered something to Marco. Marco's eyes went wide. He looked at Alice, then back at Vincent. They were discussing something important. At 2 a.m., EMTs finally arrived, checked everyone over. Mild hypothermia, all treated. No frostbite. Miraculously lucky. One EMT pulled Alice aside. Ma'am, you understand what you did tonight? You saved 9 lives. You're a hero. Alice waved him off. I'm a grandmother who made soup. By 3 a.m., the EMTs cleared everyone to stay the night rather than transport to a hospital. The storm was still too dangerous. Alice found blankets, pillows, every spare bit of bedding. 9 men in expensive suits slept on her floors, her couch, wherever they fit. She dozed in her chair, maybe 90 minutes total, and when morning came, everything would change. Alice woke to voices in her kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The storm had passed. Everything outside was white and still. She checked the clock. 6:15 a.m. Her back protested as she stood. Every muscle ached, but she was alive. So were 9 men who shouldn't be. Alice walked into her kitchen and stopped. All 9 men were awake, standing, looking healthier than they had any right to. They'd cleaned her kitchen, made coffee. Someone had even started cooking her eggs, her bread, making breakfast. Salvatore stood at the front of the group. He was tall, imposing, the classic image of a mob boss, but his eyes were soft when he looked at her. "Mrs. Brooks, good morning." "Morning." Alice's voice was scratchy. You look better. Thanks to you." Salvatore gestured to the table. "Please sit, we made breakfast. It's the least we could do." Alice sat, bewildered. 9 members of the Rossi family were serving her breakfast in her own kitchen. They set down plates, eggs, toast, coffee, more food than she'd seen on her table in months. "We need to talk," Salvatore said. He sat across from her. The others gathered around, standing, sitting on counters, all of them focused on her. "Before we leave, and we'll be leaving soon, getting out of your hair, we need to tell you something." Alice wrapped her hands around the coffee mug. "Okay. Last night you saved 9 lives. 9 men who would have died if you hadn't stopped. If you hadn't risked everything. 3 trips through hell to save complete strangers wearing rings that scare most people." Alice started to deflect, but Salvatore held up his hand. "Please let me finish." His voice was gentle, but firm. "You asked why we were out here. We told you toy drive. That's true. But it's not the whole truth." He glanced at the others. Marco nodded. Vincent's eyes were bright with emotion. "Mrs. Brooks, we are the Rossi family. That's real. Montana territory. Been working together for 12 years, but we're also something else." Marco stepped forward. He unbuttoned his suit jacket. Underneath, he wore a shirt with a medical emblem. "I'm a registered nurse. I work at St. Patrick Hospital in Missoula." Alice blinked. Vincent stepped forward. "I'm a physician assistant. I run mobile medical clinics in rural Montana." One by one, they introduced themselves. Dr. Anthony Romano, internist. Derek Castellano, paramedic. Stephen Moretti, pharmacist. Patrick Lombardi, physical therapist. Carl Benedetti, surgical equipment specialist. James Caruso, hospital administrator. And finally, Salvatore. Dr. Salvatore Rossi, trauma surgeon. Alice stared. "You're all medical professionals?" "Yes, ma'am," Salvatore said. "We started a program 10 years ago. Members of the family who work in healthcare. We do toy drives, yes, but we also run free medical clinics, mobile health services. We bring healthcare to people who can't access it." That night, Marco added, "we just finished a 3-day clinic in 3 counties. We were transporting medical supplies back to Missoula when the storm hit." The irony crashed over Alice. "So I was saving doctors. You were saving 9 people who spend their lives saving others," Romano said quietly, "and who were completely helpless when we needed help most." Alice shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say." "There's more," Vincent said. His voice shook slightly. He pulled out something from his wallet. An old photograph, worn, yellowed, creased from being carried for years. He set it on the table in front of Alice. She leaned forward, squinted. The photograph showed a school cafeteria, a woman in a white uniform and hairnet serving lunch to a line of children. The woman was younger, but unmistakably Alice. In the line stood a small boy, maybe 7 years old. Sandy brown hair, freckles, thin, so thin. "Jefferson Elementary," Vincent said. "Denver, Colorado, 1983 to 1985. Alice's hand flew to her mouth. "I was in 2nd grade," Vincent continued, his voice breaking. "My family had just moved from Iowa. My dad lost his job. We had nothing. My mom was working 2 jobs just to keep us fed, but it wasn't enough." He pointed to the little boy in the photo. "That's me. I was hungry every single day. I'd go to school with my stomach hurting. Some days the school lunch was the only meal I got." Alice's eyes filled with tears. "And there was one cafeteria worker," Vincent said, "who always made sure my plate had extra. Who learned my name when I was invisible to everyone else, who asked me about my day, who made me feel like I mattered. Miss Alice." "Alice," she whispered. "You called me Miss Alice." "Yes." Vincent's tears were falling now. "You probably served thousands of kids over 35 years, but you saved my life, Miss Alice. I graduated high school because I wasn't starving. I went to college. I became a PA, and now I spend my life serving communities just like the one I came from." He knelt down in front of her chair. 40 years ago, you fed a hungry kid extra food. Last night I was dying on Route 46, and the same woman, the same incredible woman, saved me a second time." Alice was sobbing. Her hands shook as she reached out and cupped Vincent's face. "Little Vincent Wilson," she whispered. "You were so small, so shy. I remember thinking this one needs extra love. You gave it," Vincent said. "You gave it to a kid you didn't know, who you'd never see again. You gave it because it was right. You remembered me." Alice's voice broke. "All these years. I've been looking for you for 20 years, Vincent admitted. "I knew you'd left Jefferson Elementary. I knew you'd moved, but I didn't know where. I wanted to find you, to thank you, to tell you what you did for me." He gestured to the others. "These guys have heard me talk about the cafeteria angel for a decade. They knew I was searching." Marco spoke up. "Last night when we were in your house, Vincent saw an old photo on your mantle. Your name was on it. Alice and Jerome Brooks, 1983. He recognized you." "I thought I was hallucinating from hypothermia," Vincent said. "I thought my brain was making it up, but then I saw more photos, your volunteer work at schools, your whole life of feeding people, helping people. It was you," he whispered. "After 40 years, it was you." The room was silent except for crying. Alice was sobbing. Vincent was crying. Several of the others were wiping their eyes. Salvatore let the moment settle. Then he spoke. "Mrs. Brooks, we can never repay what you did. Not last night, not 40 years ago, but we're going to try." He pulled out a folder, set it on the table. "We've made some calls this morning to our organization, to the Rossi Family Charitable Foundation, to our hospital networks." He opened the folder. "First, medical care. Full coverage through our network for life. All prescriptions, dental, vision, preventive care. You'll never split another pill." Alice stared. "Second, your house. We're bringing in contractors, full renovation, new roof, windows, heating, plumbing, everything. By next month, this house will be safe and warm. Third, financial security. The Rossi family Montana territory is giving you $50,000 emergency fund, so you never have to choose between heating and eating again." Alice tried to speak, couldn't. "But that's not all," Vincent said. "Miss Alice, you spent 35 years feeding children. Now we want to help you feed a whole community." He pulled up something on his phone, showed her the screen. "We're establishing a permanent mobile medical clinic in Bent Creek. Free health care, twice a month, staffed by our people, funded by Rossi Family Charitable Foundation and hospital partners. We want to call it the Alice Brooks Community Health Initiative, and we want you to run it," Marco added. "Community liaison. You coordinate with residents, identify needs, spread awareness, paid position, $2,000 a month." Alice shook her head. "This is too much. I can't." "You can," Salvatore said firmly. "You pulled 9 dying men off a mountain. You fed hungry children for 35 years. You've been a guardian angel your whole life. Now let us guard you. Let us honor what you represent. Let us turn your kindness into something that helps thousands," Vincent added. Alice looked around at 9 faces, 9 men who were also doctors, nurses, healers, who had been searching for her, who wanted to change her world. "If I say yes," she whispered, "and this helps even one person not have to choose between medicine and food, then it's worth it," Vincent finished. "Yes," Alice said. "Yes." The room erupted. The 9 men cheered, hugged each other, hugged Alice gently, respectfully, but with genuine joy. Romano pulled out a white medical coat from a bag. Someone had prepared this, planned this. Embroidered on the chest, Alice Brooks, Community Health Liaison. He helped her into it. Alice stood there, 68 years old, wearing a white medical coat, surrounded by 9 men in expensive suits who were crying and cheering. "Welcome to the team, Miss Alice," Vincent said. They gathered for a photo. 9 men in their dark suits, family rings gleaming. Alice in the center in her white coat, beaming through tears. Marco looked at the image on his phone. The guardian and her family. Alice laughed. Actually laughed. "I think I'm the one with family." "No, ma'am," Salvatore said seriously. "You're the angel. We're just the ones lucky enough to know you." Outside, the sun was shining. The storm had passed. And Alice Brooks, who'd gone to bed the night before as a struggling grandmother, woke up as something new. A hero, a miracle worker, a woman who'd saved 9 lives twice, and the mother of a healthcare revolution that would change thousands more. All because she'd stopped on a dark road when everyone else would have driven past. All because she'd fed a hungry child 40 years ago. All because kindness, it turns out, never dies. It just waits for the right moment to come back around. 3 months can change everything. For Alice Brooks, 3 months turned her entire world upside down. Month 1. Foundation. The construction crews arrived 2 weeks after that morning. A dozen contractors, 5 volunteers from the Rossi family taking time off work. Tools, materials, the sound of hammers and saws filling the cold Montana air. Alice watched from her kitchen as they tore off the old roof, ripped out drafty windows, pulled out the ancient furnace that barely worked. Over 14 days, her house transformed. New roof, no more buckets catching leaks during storms. Triple pane windows, no more frost forming on the inside. A modern heating system that actually heated. The day the work finished, Alice walked through her house touching everything. The new thermostat reading 70 degrees, the sealed windows, the walls that no longer let in cold air. She stood in her kitchen and cried. "Jerome," she whispered, "we have a real home again." Cost to her, $0. Month 2. The clinic arrives. The mobile clinic rolled into Bent Creek on a Saturday morning. A converted RV, professionally outfitted. Rossi family emblem on one side, medical cross on the other, parked in the church parking lot where everyone could see it. Word had spread fast. Alice had spent weeks talking to neighbors, making phone calls, knocking on doors. Free health care. No cost, no judgment, just come. The first day, 52 people showed up. Blood pressure checks, diabetes screening, prescription assistance, vision tests, basic care that most hadn't received in years. Alice stood at the entrance wearing her white medical coat, greeting everyone by name, holding hands, explaining what the doctors were saying in language people could understand. Mrs. Harris from down the street got her blood pressure medication adjusted. She'd been rationing pills for 6 months. Old Mr. Turner got his diabetes checked. His A1C was dangerously high. The clinic got him on free insulin within 3 days. 7-year-old Emma Mitchell got glasses. She'd been squinting at the blackboard for 2 years. Now she could see. The local news came, interviewed Alice, Vincent, Salvatore. Alice told the camera, 40 years ago, someone fed a hungry child. Last month, that child, now a man, saved me from a blizzard. Now we're saving a whole community. That's how kindness works. It grows. The story aired that evening. From blizzard rescue to healthcare revolution, the Alice Brooks story. By Monday, donations were pouring in. $340,000 in 1 week. 4 other rural Montana towns called asking how they could get a clinic. Month 3, the ripple effects. The changes became visible. Harold Harris, Alice's neighbor, hadn't seen a doctor in 18 months. Diabetes was killing him slowly. The mobile clinic caught it, got him on free medication. Within 2 months, his blood sugar normalized. "You saved those men," Harold told Alice at church. "They saved me. Now I'm volunteering at the clinic, passing it on." Sarah Mitchell, single mother working 2 jobs, brought her 3 kids to the clinic. Her youngest daughter was diagnosed with severe anemia. The little girl had been exhausted for months, falling asleep in class, grades dropping. Vincent coordinated free treatment at St. Patrick Hospital. Within weeks, Sarah's daughter was a different child, alert, happy, learning. Sarah started helping Alice coordinate appointments, spreading the word to other struggling families. The Turner family, elderly couple, 3rd-generation farmers, had been drowning in medical debt, considering selling their land just to survive. The clinic became their lifeline. Regular care, free medications, eliminated $850 in monthly costs. They kept their farm. In gratitude, they donated 5 acres for a permanent clinic building. Ground would break next spring. The transformation, the effects spread beyond health. People stopped moving away from Bent Creek just to access health care. Young families started moving in. 3 local businesses became official sponsors: Johnson's Barbershop, Anderson Hardware, Moore's Diner. Monthly donations, community pride. A pay-it-forward board appeared in the clinic. Patients posted offers. Free lawn mowing for seniors. We'll babysit during clinic appointments. Rides to pharmacy. Just ask. Kindness breeding more kindness. Members of the Rossi family from other territories made Bent Creek their showcase project. Brothers from other areas visited, learned the model, started planning clinics in their own communities. National news picked it up. CNN, Good Morning America, the story of a black grandmother who saved 9 men and sparked a healthcare revolution. Vincent was interviewed on a medical podcast. He told the story of Miss Alice in 1984, Miss Alice in 2024. 40 years apart, he said, voice thick with emotion. Same woman, same incredible heart, same refusal to let people suffer when she could help. The podcast went viral, $2.3 million downloads. More donations poured in, $1.8 million total. 6 more rural towns got mobile clinics approved, and every single day Alice Brooks wore her white coat, greeted patients, held hands, made sure nobody felt invisible. Every single day she thought, this is what Jerome meant. We had enough to share. Now thousands were sharing, all because she'd stopped on a dark road, all because she'd fed a hungry child 40 years ago, all because kindness never dies. It just multiplies. 1 year later, Alice stood on Route 46 again, mile marker 34, the exact spot where 9 men nearly died. But this time she wasn't alone. More than 250 people surrounded her. Bent Creek residents, members of the Rossi family from 6 Montana territories, medical professionals from across the state, press, local officials, everyone had come for the dedication. December wind bit at exposed skin, but the sun was shining. No storm today, just clear blue sky and the memory of what happened here. Salvatore stood at a microphone, his expensive suit gleaming in the sunlight. Behind him, 8 other men, the men Alice had saved, stood in formation. 1 year ago today, Salvatore's voice carried over the crowd, Alice Brooks made a choice. She saw 9 strangers dying on this road. 9 men from the Rossi family, men most people cross the street to avoid, and instead of driving past, she stopped. The crowd was silent, reverent. 3 trips through a blizzard, 9 lives saved, and from that single act of courage, everything changed. He gestured to the covered monument beside him. Today we dedicate Guardian's Mile so everyone who drives this road remembers one person's courage can change the world. Vincent and Marco pulled the cover away. A bronze plaque gleamed in the sunlight. Engraved words read, Guardian's Mile, in honor of Alice Brooks, who proved that one person's courage can save 9 lives and transform thousands more. December 2024. Below, 9 silhouettes, each labeled with a name. Alice pressed her hand to her chest. Tears streamed freely down her face. Romano stepped forward. Starting today, December 10th, is Guardian Angel Day in Bent Creek. Annual tradition, free health fair, community service. A day when we all ask, who can I help today? The crowd applauded. Alice was invited to speak. She walked to the microphone slowly, Vincent supporting her elbow. I didn't stop for recognition, she said, voice shaking but strong. I stopped because 9 people needed help. She looked at the crowd, faces she'd known for decades, new faces from towns where clinics had opened, children who were healthier, families who were thriving. We all have that choice every single day. Someone needs help. Will you stop or will you drive past? Silence, then thunderous applause. Vincent handed her a gift. 2 frames side by side. The first, that 1984 photograph, young Alice serving lunch to 7-year-old Vincent. The second, recent photo of them at the clinic. Both older, both grateful, both still feeding people. Between them, a plaque. Kindness never expires. Alice clutched the frame, sobbing openly. The ceremony ended with engines. 9 black luxury SUVs started simultaneously, a powerful rumbling tribute that shook the ground. They drove past in formation. Each driver saluted Alice. She watched them disappear down Route 46, hand on her chest, smiling through tears. Her fingers found the silver keychain in her pocket, the one Salvatore had tried to give her that first morning. She'd kept it, carried it every day. Guardian Angel, A. Brooks, 2024. Alice whispered to the wind, to Jerome, to herself. We did good, baby. We did real good. Alice Brooks didn't plan to change the world. She was just trying to get home before a storm hit. But when she saw 9 men dying on Route 46, she made a choice. Stop, help, risk everything. One choice. 3 trips through hell. 9 lives saved. And now an entire healthcare movement. Thousands of people getting care they never had before. Communities thriving, families staying together. All because one grandmother refused to drive past people in need. Here's the truth. Someone needs help today. Right now. Maybe it's your neighbor. Maybe it's a stranger. Maybe it's someone everyone else ignores. Will you be their guardian angel? Will you stop? If this story reminded you that small acts of courage create miracles, share it. Let someone else see what one person can do. Hit that subscribe button because every week we prove something important. Good still wins. Kindness still matters. And one person can change everything. What will you do?